I'm not sure where to start with this. My wife and I have 5 sons, ranging from ages 24 to 10. We were very young when we had our oldest, yes, and just recently found out my wife is pregnant again. When we announced this, my second oldest son, 20 male, who lives independently but nearby, had an extremely angry reaction, and when I spoke to him later, I found out he had gotten a girl pregnant and wanted me and my wife to adopt the baby. The baby's mother, his ex-girlfriend, is not on board with that idea, and he had been trying to persuade her. That was nearly 2 weeks ago now, and I'm at a loss for how to deal with this situation. I realize my son is scared of the situation he is in and wants to help. I have tried to reassure him that I'm with him and, to the best of my ability, willing to help him with whatever he feels he can't handle. Money, babysitting, advice, anything. I thought that once he realized it would be okay, he would step up and accept responsibility to raise his own child. However, he is adamant that he doesn't want anything to do with this baby, and insists he will do nothing besides pay the bare minimum of child support if we don't adopt it. Not even taking into account the difficulty it would be for me and my wife to have 2 babies in the household, as well as our other children. I'm uncomfortable with the idea of adopting the baby for several reasons. First of all, because the baby's mother doesn't want to give it up. Not even to us. She had apparently been considering it when she thought she'd get no support from my son, and it was her only chance to be in the baby's life and still give the baby a decent life. However, after I spoke to her personally, my son had apparently been trying to tell his ex-girlfriend that my wife and I would definitely be willing to adopt the baby, before he had even said a word to us about the situation, and assured her I would be a support system for my grandchild, no matter what. She seemed relieved to the point of tears, and immediately said she didn't want to give up her child. At this point, even if she could be persuaded to do so without me threatening to withdraw support otherwise, it would always feel like we had taken her baby under duress. On top of that, I'm uncomfortable with the idea of letting my son get out of his responsibilities as a father by taking over them for him. I raised him better than that. I'm simply unsure of how to handle this situation, how to guide my son and my grandchild in the best way for everyone. Part of my difficulty with it is my own childhood situation is making me biased in several ways. I've been the unwanted child before. When I was little, my single mother raised me, and my biological father dropped by for occasional visits. When my mom died, my dad got custody he did not want, and essentially passed the chore of raising me on to as many other people as he could, interacting with me as little as possible. It was an incredibly lonely childhood, and that rejection still hurts. I don't want my granddaughter to have to go through that same painful process of realizing her father doesn't want her, which I know she will if my son doesn't change his mind about wanting a relationship with her, and it's forced. However, even if a relationship isn't forced, she's going to wonder why her father isn't in her life, and learn that she's unwanted either way. And I don't think it's possible for that not to be hurtful. I also can't relate, because I've also been the young person who accidentally got a girl pregnant when I wasn't ready. Unlike my son, my wife and I weren't in a stable position, financially or otherwise, when we had our oldest, but we were in love, and once I was able to wrap my head around the situation, happy about it. I suppose it's because I had such a sad childhood that I was happy to finally have my own family. However, my son has had a loving family his whole life, and right now, he wants his independence. I can sympathize with that, but it's still upsetting for me to think he would abandon his own child. It's hard for me to accept that he would do something so heartless, and I keep hoping that he will change his mind of his own volition. But I think I need to prepare for the worst-case scenario that he doesn't. I'd appreciate any other perspectives about how to handle this issue. The adoption question is moot. The baby's mother doesn't want to give her child up for adoption, so there's no point even considering it. You also can't force an independent 20-year-old to be an engaged father. The only things in your control here are how much support, logistic or financial, are you willing and able to contribute to the mother of your grandchild, and how does this affect your relationship with your son? Will you stay as close, or will your disappointment mean you become more distant? I know it's frustrating that you can't make him do what you think is the right thing, but your role here is as a supportive grandparent only. Perhaps he'll come around and be in his child's life later, perhaps not. But if she's willing to accept support from you, give it, and at least someone in your family is doing the right thing by this baby. I, 30 male, used to be married to my high school sweetheart, Linda, 30 female. She got pregnant when we were 20, and I didn't want to be a dad at that time, but knew that if I suggested she go to the clinic, I would be the a-hole, so I tried to suck it up. Her parents pushed for marriage, and because my parents were embarrassed, they convinced me to do it. I was not happy with the wedding, and felt like my life was over. The only joy that I could seem to find was finding out that my ex was going to have a girl, and she agreed that we could name her after my Nana. She was my great-grandmother who died when I was 10, and I loved her very much. I tried to get excited, but I wasn't. Not even when I held the baby for the first time. It just felt wrong, and I felt terrible. I kept waiting for this magic switch to go off that would make me love the little girl, but I didn't. I think maybe it was because I didn't love her mother. One day a random woman showed up at our door and demanded to see her grandchild. I had no idea what she was talking about, but it later came out that my ex was cheating on me and that her child wasn't mine. The ex denied this, but when I suggested a DNA test, she got all defensive, but I did one anyway in secret. Her daughter was not mine. I showed her and our families the results and filed for divorce. Her parents tried to push for reconciliation, and when I refused, they threatened to use me for the money they spent on trade school for me. But there was nothing in writing stating that the money was conditional on my marriage to their daughter. It sucked that I was on the hook for child support, but a part of me felt relieved that, for the most part, I could just walk away. The baby was only a year old when the divorce was finalized, so it's not like she was going to remember me anyway. Unfortunately, my ex's daughter got sick and died, and while I was sad for the little life that was lost, I didn't attend the funeral. My parents still remained in contact with hers, so we always heard about each other, which didn't bother me, but I made it very clear I wanted nothing to do with her. I was able to rebuild my life and married my current wife, and she gave birth to our daughter. I still really wanted to use my Nana's name, and we compromised on it being the middle name. A week after the birth, my wife made a post about our daughter and showed her full name. The next day, I got blasted with messages about how awful I was to use that name, and that my ex saw it and went off the deep end. I don't see what I did as terrible, because 1, it was a middle name and not the first. 2, it was always important to me to have a daughter with that name, and my ex's child wasn't mine. 3, it's not like my baby was born so soon after hers. 4, I told my wife everything, and she was cool with it, so where do I go from here? I mean, there's nowhere to go from here, because it isn't a problem, and you're not going to change your child's name over some social media BS, nor should you. The ex kinda stole the name from you in the first place, because she is a cheat and a liar. I would remind people of that when they want to blast you for it. Like, I thought I gave my child that name the first time around. My female 19, sister, 32, Mary, and her husband, 28, John, have twins, a boy and a girl, both 10 months old. My parents were ecstatic when they found out she was pregnant, as the twins were their first grandchildren, and my sister had been struggling with getting pregnant for a while. I was happy for my sister and John, but I couldn't help wondering how they were going to handle this financially. They're in quite a bit of debt, and both work long hours. My question was answered a few weeks ago when we had a big family dinner. Me, parents, Mary, John, brother Mike, 21, brother Josh, 25, and his wife Sophie, 27. My sister announced she would be returning to work in 2 weeks, so they were going to need everyone to chip in and babysit and help out financially. I'm not gonna lie, I was shocked when I heard this, because it sounded a bit ridiculous that they expected everyone to babysit their kids for free, and to give them money for their debts. Mary went around the table asking everyone when they could watch the twins, so she could draw up a roster, and how much money they could spare. Everyone was contributing, and Sophie was even talking about trying to move her work shifts around so that she could babysit. I'm a full-time college student, and I have a part-time job at a bakery, so I really have no time or cash to spare. I'm also not great with kids, especially babies. I literally have absolutely no idea how to take care of them. When Mary got around to me, she said she thought I could do the most hours since I was only in college and didn't have any serious commitments. Her whole attitude kind of annoyed me, and I told her I wasn't going to be babysitting her kids or going to chip in money-wise, and that it was her decision to have kids, so it's her responsibility. The room went silent, and my sister started crying, and everyone started giving out to me for being selfish, and my mom said that in our family, we take care of each other. I left the dinner because everyone was so mad at me and demanding I apologize. I agree that maybe I was a little blunt with her, and maybe I should have offered to babysit once or twice, but I don't think I'm completely in the wrong. My family is still pissed at me, and my parents are demanding I not only apologize to Mary and John, but write them a check to help them out. I have like $70 in my bank account, so that's not gonna happen. I want to apologize for being rude, but I know they're still gonna expect help. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. What they are asking for is ridiculous, and them expecting you to do more because you're in college is just absurd. Edit. I forgot to add this earlier, I was in a rush. If the parents of these children really are in debt like OP said, then a baby should be the last thing on their mind. I think it is just unfair for a child to be brought up in an environment like that. If they can't look after the baby, then they shouldn't even be raising the baby. I think adoption should be an option here. Entitled sister. Why did she have kids if she can't look after them? Financial support and free babysitting. Why does everyone in the family allowing this kind of behavior? Doesn't she feel guilt, shame? Asking a college student to babysit for free. Does she think Earth rotates around her? These are my questions for OP's sister. Not the a-hole. Their behavior is entitled as hell. It still may be best to apologize for being rude and explain that you don't have any time or money to spare. Maybe offer that in the future you might be able to babysit if your schedule opens up, and you'll let them know, but right now, it's a no. The beauty of that is they think you've compromised, but then your schedule just somehow doesn't clear up. My 29 male fiance, 26 female, is an escort. She was open about it when we started dating and says she's committed to slowly pulling out of the profession. She started working as a part-time receptionist at a daycare in the past year. I used to be a nurse, but now I own a nursing agency that I've been working hard to grow. My family has had a history of bad divorces. My parents are regular working professionals, but my mom's father was independently wealthy and had a divorce where they were in and out of court for like 10 years. Before my dad met my mom, he had a divorce that lasted 2 times longer than his 2.5-year marriage. My family is also biased against escorts because people they know have been cheated on by their partners with escorts. My sister's friend chose to be a single mom because she caught her boyfriend with an escort when she was 1 week postpartum. My fiancé and I decided to keep the fact she's an escort under wraps, so we told them about the job at the daycare. My parents and sister all liked my fiancé a lot. They said she was charming, funny, and beautiful. They also liked her interest in early childhood education. So I had their approval when I asked my fiancé to marry me. We were planning on a ceremony in a church in December because my fiancé loves the idea of a winter wedding. This all went to hell when a permanent bachelor friend of my sister's boyfriend showed her that he had an interaction with her on an escort website a year ago. He saw her twice and they had texted back and forth and exchanged photos. Confronted with the screenshots, we decided to come clean together and told them about how she was slowly but definitely getting out of the industry and has been doing it to pay off debts and be financially secure. My family is furious and says I was being irresponsible and asked if I felt embarrassed. They said I needed to get a prenup, and if I didn't, they didn't want to support this wedding and threatened to boycott it. My fiancé said she'd be devastated if I seriously asked that, and said she is not materialistic and would have been fine with a courtroom wedding. Now there is tension between us, and now my parents are saying that I should postpone the wedding until she isn't an escort for a year. Plus a prenup so she won't steal part of my nursing agency, while my future mother-in-law and my fiancé says we could always have another celebration when the in-laws came around, but that she was thinking that a courthouse wedding could happen sooner than December. What do I do? I'm curious why people feel offended by prenups. If that's all it takes for the family to accept her and she's not materialistic or gold-digging, then where is the issue? Am I missing something? Family does sound pretty extreme though. My man, your parents are not against her because of the personal family history with cheating, but simply because she is a P. While it's your life and you can do what you want, you can't possibly expect your parents to be alright with it. The vast majority of parents wouldn't be. As for the prenup, I really don't see a reason why she'd not sign it. If you guys plan on keeping contact with your parents, that's an easy way to appease them. Listen here, OP. Absolutely no family in their right minds would accept a P daughter-in-law. You can dress it up any way you want, but the fact remains, she will never get any respect or admiration from them. As much as we all want to pretend to be PC and woke and accepting of others, there are limits, and S-work is one of them. When you get involved with someone like her, you have so much more to consider future-wise, like your kids, their friends and parents, their teachers, your community, your colleagues. If one obscure person recognizes her from long ago, how many others will do so? And that all comes back to hover around your family. Marry her if you want to, but don't have unrealistic expectations from people. The prenuptial is the least of your problems. Although, I am now very curious why she and her mom are suddenly pushing to marry before the date that you originally set. Why aren't you asking yourself that question?